Good morning, friends. I'm Ahriana Platten with Soulful. So glad you're here. We are back with our Meet the Masters series. And today is a really special and I hope inspiring day. It's inspiring for me because I am here with my good friend Stephanie Urbina Jones, who is the lead author on our book, Shaman Heart, Turning Pain into Passion and I always want to say passion and pleasure.
That too.
Into passion and purpose. That would be the next one, right? The next
Yes.
one can be passion and pleasure.
Right.
I am I am so honored to be part of this book with you, Stephanie. And this has been such a really unusual and even miraculous experience working together, working with a total of 26 different authors to write about the deep pain in our life that has brought us to our powerful and purposeful work in the world.
Absolutely. Well, it isn't, it's an honor and my heart is dancing to see you because of what has transpired and what has happened between all of us, and especially you and I, getting to know each other through this journey that we've taken together, and how our hearts and our lives have been deepened and enriched by the experience and by the love that we've all gotten to experience together. So I'm so happy to be here with you.
This has become and we knew this, Mark and I knew this, so let me roll back for our viewers and our listeners and say that in January of this year 26 authors gathered in Teotihuacan, Mexico. And if you're not familiar with Teotihuacan, you should become familiar because it's a mystical, amazing place on the planet, where there are pyramids and sacred sites, and the history there is. It will take me years to explore all of that, but we were all called to come together as an author group, uh, with Stephanie, who initiated this project. And I was invited through our publisher. That's how I found out about it. But Mark and I had a really mystical experience in that he had just dreamed of Teotihuacan right before we got notice that this trip was taking place. And I won't tell his story because at some point I'll interview him and let him tell his story. But he dreamt about this word Teotihuacan as though it was a being. And I happen to have some history with a book about Teotihuacan 25 years ago. And we just couldn't say no because the miracle of having this all happen, 1, 2, 3, it was too much. We just had to jump in and jump on board. So it was kind of one of those unexpected things that I think we were actually the last authors to join this project.
I think you were too, because, we didn't really have too much of a relationship.
Right.
Um, and then when the great mystery of life, of love, of however the divine, it's so amazing to me to hear that story. It makes me want to cry and sends shivers down my spine every time, including the first time you shared that with me, that Mark had that dream, the specific word Teotihuacan and the intention. It makes me have so much faith in life, and that there always is something watching and guiding us,
Mhm.
and it's such an honor that he was listening, that you are also, like, you knew that you knew. And yeah, it's amazing.
This book takes all of us into a very vulnerable place, really requires us to put our very vulnerable stories out in the world. So tell me a little bit, because that's kind of where we jumped on board. But go back to the beginning. What made you do this? How did this book come into being?
Well, I was invited last spring. I'd always in my mind had this idea, one of the things, that I would be an author. And I didn't have very much attachment to that, except to the idea of, like, how in the world would that happen with, the schedule that I have, or anybody has, really. And I was invited to be a part of this book. I was leading a journey, actually, and had been invited by a lead author to be a part of a book, Sacred Death. And I knew when I talked to Hamali Vora, the lead author of that, and she was sharing about the intent of the book that I was to write. I had the honor and the privilege, and the pivotal moment in my life was midwifing my grandmother between this world and the next. And on her transcendent passing from this world to the next, as she was walking between the worlds and talking between the worlds, she put a mission on my heart as to what I would be doing for the rest of my life that now 20 years ago has been my destiny. And so this is where it came from, this divine connection and knowing that I was supposed to write in Sacred Death, this powerful experience that happened to me through being coached and led through the portal of Brave Healer Productions as an author. And in that kind of walking between the worlds and writing that story, I had a very visceral, clear vision that I should lead a journey to the pyramids of Teotihuacan with my husband, Jeremy Pager, who we lead journeys of transformation there, but with 25 authors to then write our stories. And one of the things that I longed for in that first writing in Sacred Death was the deep connection with the other authors, because writing is such a vulnerable thing. And so that was my desire, and what was held, given to me as an idea that we would become so close that we would be able to surrender into our hearts and trust and have the faith to share our stories, and come through this experience together. Many of the conversations and or the experiences, including the one that I had with you, was pivotal in encouraging me to have the courage to write or attempt to write the story that I wrote. And I know a lot of people had that. They drew from their experience. It was something that happened that then guided them as to the story that they felt called to share.
It's so fascinating to, to really explore back in your life the very painful moments that caused you to take a turn,
Yeah.
to really point your nose in a different direction. So let's talk a little bit about that, about what without giving all the details, because we want them to read the book, but tell us a little bit about growing up and what steered you in the direction you're in.
Well, um, I was born into a bicultural home. My mother was a gringa, a beautiful blonde hair, blue-eyed woman, and my father was a Mexicano. And so I grew up and I was born into this beautiful bicultural, halfway between America and Mexico. And so the roots of my roots and my heart are browned. They've been browned by this experience. Um, but it was a different time in Texas. And so, in I think protecting me after my parents were divorced, um, I was told not to tell anyone that I was Mexican. And my story really unfolds. I had no idea until I got into this story of writing this, how profound those words, "Don't tell anyone you're Mexican," 5 words, would become a script and a pain and a lens and a shame that I would live through until in 3 4 decades later, when I could finally excavate back to that core wound, story, agreement. I mean, it's hauntingly harrowing how those 5 words and the lens of life growing up anywhere during that period of time on being Hispanic and what I felt personally and how that shaped the rest of my life and what I didn't feel worthy of. And that then, as you'll read in the story, became my thread, my red thread to follow back, to find my worth, to find my truth. And in doing so, you'll read that then became my passion for my life. But it's been, 40-year journey. And again, it's also why I do what I do as a teacher and leading people back to those sacred wounds that, like in Shaman Heart, turning our pain into passion and purpose. Almost always when I'm working with someone, I find if we follow that thread back to that initial core wound or story that is telling their life story, is the lens of their life from that pain. If we can track back to that and honor it and release the energy of it, it transforms people's lives. That really is the essence of the story. And there's a lot of pieces that are woven in there thanks to you. You were a guide to me throughout the whole process, and I'm so grateful because there were some important parts of the stories that needed to come through.
I think the only thing I did was ask you enough questions for you to find your answers, and I think that's what we do for each other.
Yeah.
Right? We ask questions, and we ask questions from an open heart. And that's the thing that I would say to all of you who are thinking about the painful things that have happened in your life and how you bring them into the light in a way that gives them that, real purpose in life, how they serve you, is you continue to ask yourself questions about what you've learned and questions about it's all kind of seated in the understanding that the universe has your back. So if these things happen, the universe has your back. There's a reason. There was something you were learning from the experience. And believe me, when you read this book, you will not take that statement lightly. You will not. Right now, you might think, oh, but Ahriana, the experience I have is so horrible and awful. It couldn't possibly have a good purpose in my life. You don't understand. When you read this book, you'll know that I understand, and all of these authors understand, because the experiences, as wide and varied as they are tragic and difficult and challenging and really life-changing and life-directing. So if something happened to you and you think this is worse than anything Ahriana can imagine, I promise you it's not. It's not worse than anything I can imagine. And who you are somehow is seated in that experience. You talked about following the thread, and I still am wearing my thread. We corded ourselves to one another in ceremony while we were writing, and kind of like an umbilical cord. We were all birthing this book together, and I just can't bring myself, even though the book is out there now, I can't bring myself to take it off, because it is, again, that deep connection. Now, Stephanie, you are an unusual author, because usually, authors are quiet people who like to write, and that's their primary place of communicating. Not you, girl. You are out in the world. Talk a little bit about the other thing that you do in life.
Well, you can read about it in my chapter, because there's the red thread from those words, don't tell anyone you're Mexican. As I came back to know my roots in my adult life, I became passionate about my culture and about the beauty of the way that my Mexican culture and the people are connected to the land, to the heart, to their faith, to their family. And so I became passionate about sharing, advocating, loving, spreading the sunshine about this heritage in every way. And as you'll read, on my grandmother's deathbed, she put a mission on my heart. She said, Mija, you are going to be a mensajera. You are going to be, that's a messenger. She says, you are going to be a messenger sharing country music with chili peppers. She said that all over the world. And so at the time, I said, I can't. I'm a writer. I was a songwriter. That's what I did. And I loved it. It's like, I don't have to be a public figure. I can't speak Spanish. How can I be a mensajera? And she says, Mija, you will. And so, after she passed, it was the conviction of my heart, and just kept following that red thread, cosmic breadcrumbs. As you said, the universe loves us. And the more we do this healing and excavation, the more we realize we're worthy and that life loves us and is guiding us anytime we ask and pray. And that road led to, me making 9 albums, independent albums, sprinkling chili peppers in my country music, traveling all over the world. I've, played some of the biggest festivals in the world. The Montreux Jazz Festival, Country Gold in Japan, Crapone in France, the Americana Music Fest, all over, bringing this love of my heritage, of what I was told not to be now is my passion.
Yeah, and your grandmother's message is not your only, not she's not the only ancestor that plays into this story. Talk a little bit about your grandfather Manuel.
So, my great grandfather Manuel um, crossed the border in El Paso in 1907. He was called at an early age from to be a man of faith, a God. And in Mexico, that would mean that you were going to be a priest. And so, as the story goes, he went to the Vatican and to become a priest. This is the late 1800s. And something happened, and it didn't work for him. And he left. It was so profoundly painful that he left Rome, came back to Mexico, left his family, left his faith, and left his country to cross the border in 1907 for his own religious freedom and a connection to his own divinity. And he ended up becoming a Baptist minister, preaching the gospel all over the Southwest. And so after my grandmother died and she put this mission on my heart, you can imagine, in this great tale, which we all have these great tales in our life. In this great tale, I'm in Mexico and I'm doubting myself again. And I'm led to a healer who does a breathwork journey, which now I lead breathwork journeys, but I do a breathwork journey. And in that breathwork journey, I have a vision, and Manuel comes to me and directs my life at that point and says, Mija, you were born to sing. You were born to tell our story. It's time for you to go back and do this. And so that was now 20 years ago. And have I looked back? Absolutely. Have I wanted to quit? So many times. Have I doubted? Absolutely. Have I wept and gnashed my teeth? Like, how could you put this on my heart? Yes, all that. And, I would quit for however many days. And then my heart would be refilled with the knowing of this divine connection and that I'm being held and guided. And that would give me the energy, the fortitude that I would need, the faith to keep going. And I am so grateful. You and I have this in common, and we'll talk more about it, but that connection to the ancestors is
Mhm.
available to us all the time. And I love it, again, when people start doing their healing work, they can really begin to commune and connect with them.
If you had any doubt, your grandpa made sure that you had the physical understanding that this is not your imagination. Talk about that.
So, in the world of country music, which I'm a country music artist, usually those accolades and things happen in your 20s. By the time you're 30, it's over, baby. Put that to rest. So I was always wrestling with that. And at this last moment, there were some amazing things that happened that I could not, I knew that I was being guided. And but I was still wrestling. We've talked about this. Right before you get through a portal, you're about to step into a next level of experience, doing battle with those demons that I'd carried for so long about my own worthiness. I was really struggling. And I got a phone call out of the blue from this guy and asking me if I was Stephanie Urbina Jones, the singer, and if I knew Manuel Anaya Urbina. I said, yes, I do. I have a Bible here. It's Manuel Anaya Urbina's Bible from the late 1800s that was returned to me a couple of months before I was kind of escorted into the opportunity of making history as the first artist to bring mariachi and the spirit of Mexico to the Grand Ole Opry stage. And so that's what you're talking about. It was absolutely meant to be. And it came right when, again, I was standing at that doorway wanting to quit.
And these ancestors that kind of carry us forward get very little credit for all the good work they do.
Right.
Like somebody is steering our life a little bit here. It's a very powerful thing. It's a very powerful thing. And your story was a blast to hear. I first heard this story sitting on the bus between one place and another, and we had a several-hour bus ride together and had the chance to hear this story. And it really kind of puts the foundation under this book. Like this is about telling your story. It's also about Jeremy's story and how the two of you came together. And Jeremy's story, Jeremy is wow, what a powerhouse. What a powerhouse. I mean, really you two together do so much in the world. And then there are 24 other authors. And their stories are amazing, aren't they?
Amazing. And they run the gamut of light, but poignant, an everyday happening to someone, and then having an awareness of that leading them somewhere, to unimaginable, horrific experiences that you cannot imagine that someone would come back and live, and to not only tell the story, but to live and transform the story. It's so inspiring. It really is inspiring.
And these stories are not just stories. So if you're thinking about, wow, well, this might be an interesting exploration in humanity, what kind of things do people go through? There's more to this book than that. This book, in each chapter, includes the medicine of that, the tool that each author recommends that you try in order to do your own excavation, in order to find your passion, in order to move from, maybe what your passion is, but you're not quite sure what you need to know to move that passion into purpose. And so as you read through this book, it's a how-to. It's a real how-to.
It really is. And I'm glad that you brought that up, because for me, it was important to call it medicine. And I talk about this, in my chapter, but the reason I am doing what I love and living my dreams, absolutely 100%, is because of my faith and the support that I've had. But I want everybody to know, for me, I desperately tried for 15, 20 years traditional counseling. And I understood my own wounds. I understood where they came from and why I was having trouble in all my relationships and my jobs and was like not able to stand in the spotlight and share my love. I understood mentally, cognitively, but I could not change it. I took it to, all the different traditions of religion that I had been raised in, and they gave me some medicine, so to speak, but I could not release the energy. And it really was from the experiential, ceremonial initiations that happen in the pyramids of Teotihuacan on a sacred journey like that with a sacred tribe of people, or in these alternative therapy things that we offer and different people do. And it's indigenous, this is the way the indigenous handled things. When someone would have a problem in their life, they would come to the medicine man or woman, and they would call a sweat lodge, they would call a rebirthing ceremony in a sweat lodge, they would dance it, they would drum it, they would cry it. And any healer that you work with, they don't run from the pain, they go into the pain. They're going to push into the pain to release the love.
So this book provides people with an opportunity to explore the medicine that can help you transform your pain into passion and further into purpose, to really allow you to step out into who you are. And we talked a little bit about this earlier, Stephanie. It's vulnerable. It's vulnerable to really stand in your own authentic heart and put aside any idea that your story is not valuable in the world, or that your purpose is not as important as someone else's purpose, and to really stand up and say, this is who I am, this is what I've experienced, and here's what I've learned from it. And I want to know who you are and what you've experienced and what you've learned from it, so that we can grow richly together and make the world a better place. This book really does that.
As you're speaking, I'm thinking about what do we long for the most? And it's connection. It's intimacy. It's to be seen. It's to be heard. It's to not feel alone. And I think that these stories do that. You will read them, and one, if not all of them, will touch you and maybe give you the courage to look into your closet and what is niggling inside of you or blasting you, that is your sacred longing. You longing to have relationship, you're longing to live a dream, you're longing to write a book. What is calling you? And you're going to hear from all these authors how they opened up their closet and looked at the nitty gritty and the things that were niggling them, and then what brought them their great passion from that and turned it, transformed it.
I was thinking about, you said the 5 words that changed your life as a child. And I was thinking about another author, Emily Greaves, who also designed the artwork for the cover of this book. And she says her life was completely changed when she said the words, "I'm an artist."
Right.
And the person she said them to said, "Great, I need you to paint for me. I need this mural done on this wall." And it changed everything. It moved her from the United States down into Mexico and set her on those couple of words. Just being able to authentically say, "I'm an artist," before I think she probably even realized she really is a phenomenal artist.
Amazing. Yes, exactly. It is amazing. Our lives can change in a moment, you know. And I don't walk with that awareness all the time, but more and more I am aware that we can be redirected to our own divinity and understanding and connection at any given moment.
I almost said these words. I almost said, they're not superstars, but they are.
They are.
And you, woman, like really, the music is phenomenal. What this woman creates in the world is amazing and heart touching and fun and makes you want to stamp your feet and get out of your chair. So,
Thank you.
these are amazing people, but they're also people and accessible and people who do good work. And if you are interested in the work that they do, you'll be able to reach out to them. All of their information is in the book, how to find them, where to write to them, what work they do, their bios, all of that stuff. So you have the ability to reach out, to connect, to get guidance from these folks, and you will want to.
Absolutely. It
Yeah.
is amazing because every single one of them is a leader in their field. And I want to say a lot of their leadership comes from their personal experience, and that's what makes them safe. And that's what your heart will be called to call a certain person because of their experience or the way that they connect with you. Follow that thread. If some story speaks to you, reach out to that author, because that's why we're all here.
So, Stephanie, tell us a little bit. You've got some big powerhouse trips coming up. You've got some stuff happening. Give us an idea how people could jump on board with you.
Well, my music, if you want to catch me in concert, everything will be at Honky Tonk at StephanieUrbinaJones.com. Excuse me, StephanieUrbinaJones.com. And my music is called Honky Tonk Mariachi. That's what the country music with Chili Peppers is. And so I tour with that all over the world. But as far as teaching and sharing my love and in the transformational healing arts, you can check us out at freedomfolkandsoul.org, freedomfolkandsoul.org. And we are always leading a journey in the pyramids of Teotihuacan. We lead the Toltec medicine wheel of transformation, which is a recapitulation, intentionally taking you back through the medicine wheel of your life. Because in your life, there are parts of all of us that made agreements or stories or pain, things that happen, and we got left behind. And so we take you back through this powerful portal of Teotihuacan to invite these parts of yourself back and to rewrite that story. So that's one, we lead that this June. We're leading a journey to Peru with an amazing Jorge Luis Delgado, a Peruvian shaman who is just he's amazing. And that is the end of August and into September. And then we're so excited that we're going to be leading a journey with Ahriana and Mark to dance with the ancestors in Oaxaca, Mexico, one of my favorite places on the planet. And it's going to be an amazing, creative, passionate, joy-filled week.
We are so excited for that trip, and people are starting to rev up and ask questions and get registered. So if you're interested in any of these trips, jump on board, register now because they fill up quickly.
Absolutely.
Pick up this book, read it, see what it brings forward, connect with the authors, and listen to this woman's great music. You will love it. You will enjoy it, and it will bring light into your life just like you do, Stephanie. You're an amazing woman, and I'm so grateful. Like I said at the beginning, Spirit told Mark and I this would be a place we would make lifetime friendships, and that has proven true already. And I'm so grateful you're in my life. Thank you for spending time here on our Meet the Masters series. You are indeed a master in so many ways and in so much of what you do. And I'm just honored that we get to share this life and be friends.
I feel the same way, Ariana. Thank you so much. It's a divine blessing by the ancestors that we were brought together. So thank you. And if I forgot to mention, check all of us out. You can find us, if not on the book, go to shamanheart.org. And that is another resource to connect you to all the authors.
Right. I forgot about that too. Shamanheart.org. The book is called Shaman Heart, Turning Pain into Passion and Purpose. You can get it today. I'll put a link in the chat. And just appreciate so much you're spending your time with us. Stephanie, thank you.
Thank
Friends, I'll see you soon.